Salakia for the 30 to the 20 or 30 minute momentarily pause because had to do something for my OG. Then we was talking, having a little discussion. But back to the sit down lesson. This is part two of this sit down lesson that I was doing as far as the inflations and everything like that of consumer prices. Once again, continues to goes up as the inflation rate. The consumer spending went from 9.1 in early June in the summer. Now in mid-August, the consumer spending, because at first it went from 9.1, then it went down from 8.5. Now it rolls back up at the late end of August. I believe 8.7 or 8.8 or something like that. So yeah, as you know, the Federal Reserves continue to tackle the inflation, try to ease the inflation as usual, and then they come up ways to once again increase the federal tax hike of the Federal Reserve. But continue on with the news article, part two of this lesson. Though the annual CPI peaked at 9.1 in June, as I mentioned, which was the biggest gain in November of 1981. It was remain above 8% for 6 straight months, with one more CPI report due before the election day. And so I believe that report is going to be coming very soon. So as they mentioned, before the election day, one more last report for the midterm elections. It is unlikely to give the handling before Salaki. Hold on, I'll be there. I'm doing something right quick. Salakia for that. Brother was calling. But continue on with the lesson. It says the U.S. gasoline prices has plunged from an average record high above $5 per gallon in June. And then according to the data of AAA, they were average of $3.07 per gallon on Tuesday. Right, because the inflation has eased a little bit, and then the gas prices have eased a little bit as well too. But we expect for it to go back up, the gas prices and the inflation as well too. It says the U.S. stocks opened lower. The dollar rallied against a basket of currencies. U.S. Treasury prices fell. The federal officials gathered next Tuesday and Wednesday for their regular policy meeting. Financial markets have almost priced in a $75 base points rate increase of next Wednesday, according to the CME Fed Watch tool. The Feds will twice the hike its policy rate by 3/4 of a percentage point in June and July. Since March, it has lifted that rate from zero to its currency range for 2.25 to 2.50%. It says data last week shows the first time applications for unemployment benefits at a 3-month low. Job growth was solid in August. There were 2 job openings for every unemployment person on the last day of July. That is a supporting strong wage gain and contribute the higher prices to service and keep underlying inflation elevated, including the volatile food and energy components of the CPI rose 0.6 in August after a advancing of 0.3 in July. Economics has forecast that so-called core CPI increasing 0.3 Underlining the inflation was also driven by high prices for household furnishing operations as well as new motor vehicles, monitoring vehicle insurance, and education. But there were decrease in the cost of airline fares, communications, and used cars and trucks. In the 12 month through August, the core of CPI increased 6.3 after rising of 5.9 in July. Yep, so this is highlight photos of consumer spending increasing. So yeah, so this is part two of this lesson as I, continue to finish the news article of it came in that the consumer prices went up once again. It had decreased early this summer and then it went back up once again from 8.5, I believe, to 8.7 or 8.8 or 8.9 and around in that area. So the consumer price is still going to continue to goes up. Everything's continuing to goes up. The consumer spending continue with high price of the cost of food, the cost of living. Even though the gas prices are down a little bit, the inflation, but we expect in the next couple of months, as we entering winter as well too, the inflation is going to go back up. The gas prices are going to go back up. The cost of living is going to go back up. Everything that's expense is everything is going to consistently go back up as well too. As we entering the midterm elections, I believe, coming up very soon, and I believe it's going to be from the Federal Reserves. They waiting on another report to come in to see if the inflation gonna decrease in the consumer spending. But it's highly unlikely that the consumer spending gonna decrease, but it's gonna increase because you look at globally, you get inflations throughout the roof in different countries. Because I seen a report over there in Denmark. I believe their inflation rate was the highest of 10.2. Then you had a high inflation rate over there in the UK. They was like 10.5 or 10.1, I believe. That been the highest since a long time ago. You know, and then United States, they got hit with that inflation as well too. Even though it kind of eased a little bit, but expect to see it gonna increase more and more and more, and expect to see more consumer spending. And now I was looking at the stocks exchange. I say about a couple of minutes ago, it was down to like negative 881 points because the report came in due to the inflation, I believe, the inflation in the consumer spending. Once that report had came out, and then because sometimes the stocks, they reflect what's going on globally or economically. So the stocks might have a reaction of what's going on in the world, especially economically. If a report comes out of a inflation decrease or increase, or the economy or the consumer spending, and that's what the market's gonna react off of that. If it's gonna gain some points or it's gonna crash. Now we seen that the reports came in with the increase of consumer spending, with the inflation and the gas prices and the jobs reports and all that. Now you got the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, and the Dow Jones. They all crash. It's in the negatives range now. And I believe the S&P 500 was like a negative 400, 300, and the Nasdaq was like negative 5 or 600 something like that. Then the Dow Jones was negative 881 due to the reaction reports that came out with the inflation and the consumer spending, because the consumer spending is increasing once again. So that shows you, as I brought out the scriptures of part one of the sit down lesson, you know, about modern day Babylon is falling. Babylon had been that golden cup. Now that it's falling, it had The nations have been drunk with the wine of her fornication. Now the nations are turning away from modern day Babylon, especially when it comes to the currency. The dollar, even though the dollar is still high value. But once the everything is going to be full digital, that's when that MOTB, that Charagma season comes in, of recorded in Revelations 13 and verse 16. That's when that comes in, because that's when that full digital mandatory currency be fully implemented. That lets you know that the dollar isn't going to be no more value. That's why the nations like Russia, China, India, places of those different countries are slipping away from the American dollar, because they gonna know for sure in the near future that it's not gonna be no more value. So yeah, yep, as this report just came out, rent, food drives the consumer prices more higher, right? Because the rent constantly, the rent, the house mortgages, and people pay rent every month, constantly going up. Food prices going up, the consumer spending of foods and stuff like that. Even though you might get assistance with your food, but it's still consistently going up, because you have citizens that pay food out of pocket, or they might get assistance to help them pay their food. Either so either way it goes, everything still consistently goes up. The consumer spending with the inflation is going to potentially go skyrocket up once again, and gas prices and everything consistently goes back up. It's going to increase back up in the next couple months, as the Federal Reserve's waiting for a new report to come out before the midterms elections in November comes very soon. So expect to see consumer spending continually goes up, inflation's increasing, and the cost of living, consumer spending, and the gas prices is gonna continue goes up, even though it's down right now. But expect for it to go up. You know. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying for part 1 and part 2. Now I'm finishing up part 2. Salakia for the 40 minute delay. But I was able, Lord willing, throughout the Yahbashim Shai, I was able to finish part 2 of this lesson. So once again, I hope this was edifying through the spirit, power, grace, and mercy of Yahweh Shai. And first and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Akakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, preaching his word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, that be like unto the speckled bird, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And until next time, I will say shalom and a ball.